Mayan history includes more than 500 years of conquest and domination, dating back to the early 1500s with the invasion of Guatemala by Spaniards who forced the Mayan communities to give up their land and culture. Refusal usually meant torture and death. This is why some words used when describing the history of the Mayan population include adversity, alienation, persecution, enslavement, and social inequality.
Into history. So understanding history is that it is a very basic, it's a very fundamental step before we can dream of a better human family.
Luis Marcos, Executive Director of the Comunidad Maya Pixamixim located in Omaha, Nebraska, will share his story as a native of the Mayan Canjobal territory and will guide us as we reflect on the Mayan culture in the United States and their acculturation issues.
I was born in the Canjobal Maya territory, currently known more as the northern region of the state of Guatemala on our territory. I left my traditional homeland in 1989 and came to the States. I came to Los Angeles, California in 1989, and I moved to Sioux City, Iowa in 1999. And I moved to Omaha, Nebraska in 2005, and I have been here with my wife since then.
There are more than 20 different indigenous Mayan languages, and some Mayas in the United States are trilingual.
So my first language is Anhobal Maya, so I belong to the Mayan nation, and so that's of course, my preferred language, and Spanish as a second language, but also English as well. So those are all languages that I have learned after birth.
Many difficult conditions in Guatemala have forced people to leave their territories.
So that is why indigenous peoples have to immigrate in my particular case. So since the invasion, the European invasion, then there has been these policies of extermination, exclusion, forced assimilation, cycles, many cycles of violence. For the most part, indigenous peoples are displaced, peoples as a matter of policies, from the states on our traditional homeland.
They make a dangerous travel through Mexico and then, generally without documents, get into the United States, hoping for asylum or even an undocumented life, believing that either will provide them with safety, work, and possibly education.
I feel like there's a lot of people without documents, and that is not acceptable in my view, because it's a fundamental human right to have identity.
Many of them make a place like Nebraska their new home. Between 2011 and 2015, there were about 12,000 people of Guatemalan heritage in Nebraska, being Mayan about 40% of them.
I would say conservatively, very conservative, a million people of Maya origin in the United States, and about 8,000 in Nebraska, and about 2,000 in Omaha. But again, those are very conservative numbers. I am pretty sure it could be twice as many. This makes us the biggest, the largest displaced indigenous, people here in the United States.
The Mayan migration experience yields additional complex challenges, including the reasons why they left their territories, the way they arrived to the United States, and their acculturation process. Inside the United States, the Maya become part of the larger questions concerning immigration. Many people call them immigrants or refugees. However, this denomination may cause more acculturation barriers and stressors among this community.
I feel like we have to express gratitude. This said, I don't think we need to compare, we need to say and be happy and say that, oh, they have it better than they have it in their traditional homeland, so then things must be good. There are a lot of things to improve. For example, as as the Maya, here we are articulating our presence as displaced indigenous peoples, so we do not accept labels like immigrants, for example, or refugees. How can we be refugee in our own continent? It's not like we had to cross the ocean to come over here. Our ancestors had already traveled all this continent.
Acculturation occurs when individuals from different cultures come into contact with another culture, causing change in cultural patterns of either or both groups. The Maya history of oppression, enslavement, socioeconomic challenge, language barriers, and violence means the Mayan face more acculturation challenges and cumulative stress.
Um, I'm not really sure if I understand the term acculturation, but if it is about adapting, to a new culture, I mean, there are many layers of it. I think so. Basically, it is a very painful. Maybe I should just speak from my very personal experience. It is a very painful, process.
Acculturation stress is a tension an individual feels as a result of having to adjust to a new culture, or sustain his or her cultural identity in a new or different cultural setting.
And to me, identity is a matter of life and death. I feel strongly that that identity is an important thing. And like you mentioned earlier, many people, just assume that, that coming from south of the border of the United States, everyone that comes from south of the border is Hispanic or Latino, and that is not the case.
For many years, the Mayan communities have not seen reflected their identity in the census in the United States, and this may constitute another acculturation challenge for them.
I think in the 2020 census, we have been fighting for the last 30 years about um, us not being counted as Hispanics or Latino, because right now we're all in the same group, Hispanic or Latino. And so we have really worked with the Census Bureau, in leadership. And so we have said we want the states, the governments of contemporary states have the legal obligation to keep numbers, statistics on indigenous peoples. And so we have said we want to be registered as Mayan. And in this year, they said, how they say, white, African American, Native American, Pacific Islander, and I don't remember what other. But then at the bottom, there's a section that says register or other indigenous peoples from where you come from. For example, Maya, Aztec. They have specific examples like that. And so I think that's a great accomplishment. But then it was that we had. There wasn't any investment I don't think, at least not official investment from the government to say actually reach out and educate those who belong to an indigenous nation to register as indigenous.
Acculturation stress should not be compared to daily stress. Acculturation stress is an additional source of stress that places individuals at higher risk for cultural, physical, and mental health disparities. Higher levels of acculturation stress has been linked to higher levels of depression and suicide ideation among immigrants, especially among first and second generation adolescents.
When I came to California, Los Angeles, California, one of the biggest metropolitan area there, in 1989, I was 17. So it is already difficult to be a teenager, right? But to be a teenager coming from an indigenous community where you don't have electricity, you don't really have television, or the only thing that I had to remember is just radio, battery operated radio that I carried around to listen to music. Really isolated from urban areas, to come to a huge metropolitan area like Los Angeles. It was very, very painful. And the thing is, I had my brother there with me. Actually, three of my brothers were with me. I had friends, and I was relatively healthy, and I had at least an employment to go to, not making a lot of money, but I had something healthy. But then inside of me, there was just something that, it's just like, felt like excruciating, pain. And I was like, what's wrong with me? I have got to be crazy. Like, I mean, what's wrong with me when I'm healthy, when I'm surrounded by, when I have my siblings, when I'm surrounded by my friends and things, what's wrong with me? I thought about suicide a couple of times as you walk across the bridge and things like that.
The historical experiences and multiple variables comprising acculturation stress faced by the Maya place them at higher risk for suicide, substance abuse, and mental illness.
So I just kept going to just many different meetings and things like that. And in one of those meetings, I heard about the term cultural shock. And they went on to describe what it was. And that's when I realized, oh, yeah, that's what's happening to me. It does have a name, and someone else, and probably everyone else, is going through the same thing. And then that's when you start to address the issue. And once you put a name to it, once there is someone else like you going through it, and you talk about it, then that's when the healing process starts.
Research about acculturation stress among Mayan shows a common theme: the desperate need for culturally appropriate mental health services for individuals facing acculturation and cumulative stressors. Research investigating Mayan stress level, substance abuse, mental and physical health needs in the United States is long overdue.